See, the data-driven testing is very simple. Please mute yourself. Who is that? Please go for mute. Uh, I hope are you there with me, right? Here, till now, what you have done, so you have tested many applications. You are writing the Selenium PyTest script in this particular file, which means it's a PyCharm tool, where you are writing a PyTest scripting code in order to test this particular application. You are writing a program in Selenium PyTest framework, and you are testing the web application, whatever there in this particular page through browser, which is the WebDriver. You are automatically testing the web application through this particular program. And here in this application, we are giving an input, user IDs, password, all the inputs you are giving manually, as well as using parameterization testing too. But now the data-driven testing means whatever the application you are going to test here, whatever the application you are going to test here, will be taking the input not manually. It will be take the input from the Excel sheet, whatever the data is available in this particular Excel sheet. In this sheet will be maintained whatever the input to be passed to this particular application will be retrieved from this particular Excel sheet row by row and passing to the corresponding input and test whether it is working or not. This is called data-driven testing. So such a data-driven testing is going to be happen with a special package in this particular Python is that, which is, there is a OPENPYXL is a special package with which we are going to be execute this entire the data-driven testing scenario, whatever the demonstration I have shown to you. So this is the abstract diagram, how previous testing would happen, now how data-driven testing would happen. So only thing is that, here, this Excel sheet will be holding the data that row by row, whatever the inputs required to this particular application will come from the Excel sheet. Accordingly, it will be get tested. This program is common. So here it's a PyCharm, PyTest Selenium program would be there. Here the browser will be opened. Here the Excel sheet will be. There are three entities are going to be involved each other here. So now firstly, how to read the data from the Excel to the program through the Python, how to write back to the Excel sheet we are going to learn now, because we have to do that particular task later in the application, in the project. Firstly, we are going to learn how to read the data from the Excel sheet to the Python program, how to write the data from a Python to the Excel sheet we are going to learn. Afterwards, I'll be come back to how to application is going to take an input, how data-driven testing is going to be happen. Data-driven testing is a hybrid model. It's a framework where you have to consider as a one of the project in your experience. Whoever is going to keep an experience for the job. Clear? So let us do the certain programs such a way that this whole scenario you will be able to understand that. Clear? So DDT means data driven testing is the hybrid automation testing framework in order to test any web application by maintaining data held by an external Excel sheet. DDT required a package from the built-in called OpenPyXL. OpenPyXL is a built-in package. So in DDT, there are three entities are involved. As Sumer, please you keep in your mute, please.
Okay.
Yeah. There are three entities are involved that PyCharm, file hold, PyTest, Selenium code, web application maintained through WebDriver using browser. The third is an external Excel sheet maintain data in the form of table. Yeah. So this is the theory behind it. Let's go to an as usual procedure yes. I'll be taking a Python file. Firstly, I would like to demonstrate read data from Excel using OpenPyXL. So we are demonstrating now read data from an Excel sheet using OpenPyXL. So in order to do that, firstly, you're supposed to go and install the package. Go to settings, Click on plus, search for the OpenPyXL. I hope you are seeing. An OpenPyXL is a library in order to read or write data from Excel files. So I'm installing it now. So open package have been installed successfully. Okay. So in order to firstly, once if we successfully loaded, we have to import it. We have to import OpenPyXL. OpenPyXL is the package. So in order to read the data from the Excel sheet, we should have the Excel sheet, right? We should have an Excel sheet. Where I'm going to create the Excel sheet in the C drive, in my system, in the C drive, users, public, where if you look at, there is a data. Are you see? There is a data. So the data is consisting book name, purchase date, amount, location. This is the data. It's a built-in data, or else you can create your own data. And see, whenever we deals with an Excel sheet, this is called workbook. This is called, this entire the Excel sheet need to be considered as a workbook. Within the workbook, there are n number of sheets can be created. Now, if you look at here, there is a sheet. S is a capital SCHEET1 sheet 1. This data is consistent. This sheet 1, this data is consistent. This data is completely two-dimensional data. Two-dimensional data means rows and columns. So now there are four columns. There are four columns and 7 rows. See, so in arrays concept, by default, the row start from 0, whereas an Excel sheet, row will start from 1. That's a difference you have to identify. In this table, each particular, let's suppose this particular 800 is called, what, cell. A cell is an intersect point from row and column. Clear? So this is a table. Table will have a rows and columns. Each element will be intersect point, or it can be referred in the form of a rows and columns. Let's suppose Java. Java fifth row, first column is called as a Java. Let's suppose India, like or else Australia. Australia fourth column, third row is going to be referred as the Australia. So you have to consider this Excel sheet as a workbook. Within the workbook, what is the sheet you are holding the data need to be referred. Within the sheet, what is the cell you are going to store in the data? That is the point you're supposed to remember. If you have this idea, let me close this particular file. Let's go to the Excel sheet. Now this data, whatever is available in this path, I wanted to read from the Python. Okay, let's go here. Come back. Now, you write a code. Oh. You write a code to locate an Excel sheet where it is created within local path within the system. In my system, where my file is created, there is an object called as a file, which there will be a C drive, where there is a users is the folder directory. Within the users, there will be a public. Within the public, there will be a file called data. You see, whenever if I type a data, it will be showing whatever the files are available within this particular directory. Cal data, test data, embedded testing, destination file, all these will be available. Yes or no? Clear? So here data.xls we have to take because our data is available in data xls.file. Okay. Afterwards, we have to write a code to locate, to locate, to locate workbook, to locate workbook. So here I'm going to create there is a object is called as a workbook is equal to OpenPyXL has, in order to load, there is a built-in function called as a load underscore workbook. Load underscore workbook is a built-in function derived from the OpenPyXL. Which file you wanted to load? There is already I have shown there is a path called as a file. File is a parameter which is already refers to a file which is holding the data. That file I'm loading into an object is called as a workbook. Now within the workbook, in which sheet we are holding the data. So write a code to locate in which sheet you are holding actual data. Actual data. Obviously, sheet is the reference point. Within the workbook, I have there is a data is available capital SHET1, because this sheet 1 is holding the data physically. I have shown you. Next, isn't it? So in order to retrieve the data, firstly, the Excel sheet is the finite data it is going to holding. It is not going to hold the infinite data. So we must understand how many rows are there the data actually holding, how many columns are there in the data we have to confine now. How do you retrieve? So number of rows need to extract. How do you extract? Here rows is equal to number of rows is equal to within the sheet dot max row is nothing but max underscore row. This max underscore row is the property to the sheet which will give you actual data, how many rows holding in your sheet and columns. I'm sorry, guys. I got a call, so I couldn't speak to you. Okay. So this column is the, columns is equal to, you can able to get the, built-in uh, properties is that, so max underscore column is the property. Here, you just write otherwise. Max underscore column is the property of sheet. So whenever you trying to print now, I'm trying to print it now. Number of rows in Excel sheet. You see now it will be produced to you that how many rows are there in the Excel sheet. If it is able to interact, number of columns in Excel sheet. Columns. Now you execute now once. It will be give you that exactly how many number of columns are there in an Excel sheet. You see now? Are you seeing, guys? So our program is able to interact with Excel sheet now. Excel sheet has 7 rows and Excel sheet has a 4 columns. So whenever we get to know about rows and columns, now we are, because the table is two-dimensional row, right? Two-dimensional data. Now I'll be writing a code how to retrieve entire the data. Code to retrieve all the rows and columns data from the Excel. Now I am writing here. So whenever we have there is a table, we must understand that it's a two-dimensional array. We must use the nested for loop. We need to use nested for loop for row in operator range. So obviously we must read the data from the first row, because in Excel sheet the row will be start from 1, not from the 0. Until what extent we have to read? So rows, how many rows are there? 7 rows. 7. A range function will be read the data range minus 1. But if you keep rows plus 1, so that up to 7th row it will be able to read. Similarly, for column in range, and it will be read from the first column, and the columns plus 1 will be, it will be able to read. Okay. So now I'm going to write one statement that, we need to print, sheet within the sheet, isn't it? Dot cell. In sheet, each cell need to be retrieved. So based on the iteration row comma column, isn't it? Corresponding value, isn't it? Comma end is equal to, we give some kind of a space. So after every row, we have to move to the next row, right? Therefore, I'm going to keep that, slash n, so that it will be go to the next one. Now you see the output. Now you see the output. Yeah. Are you seeing, guys? Uh, I made a mistake here. No, it's not a columns here. It's a column. Clear? So whatever the data is there in Excel sheet, entire the data have been retrieved. So you have learned how to retrieve